to another episode of Becoming a Techno Wizard. Trying a new tool today, Loom. Gonna see how it works, see if it works better. There's some cool things you can do here. Like I can write, I can draw things here. So if I'm again messing around with that, that might be interesting. And I can see the time over here on the side, and you might be able to see my camera in this cool little circle here. So that might be cool. But yeah, let's see how it goes. As always, 15 minutes. Let's get into it. So we're talking about a research framework. So if you want to recap on the last couple episodes, it'll be up there in the cards. But otherwise, let's just jump into this thing. We talked a little bit about information architecture processes, in which compensate, here we go. That little picture here: research, strategy, design, implementation, and administration. So for today, we're going to get into the research framework. It says, good research means asking the right questions, and choosing the right questions requires a conceptual framework of the broader environment. Our faithful three-circle diagram, figure 11-2, which we introduced in Chapter 2, has been invaluable in helping us shape a balanced approach to research. It helps us to decide where to shine the flashlight and to understand what we see. Consequently, we have used this model to organize our exploration of the research process. So this is that three model design, or balanced approach to research. You have content, context, and users. And context is the business goals, funding, politics, culture, technology, human resources. So that encompasses all the context behind what your design needs to be. The content is the document data and the data types, the content objects, metadata, volume, existing structure, and of course the users, which is the audiences, tasks, needs, information, seeking behavior, experience, and vocabularies. So our goal, of course, is to get it in the middle there, to make sure we have all the context we need, the content we need, and the users' needs. Put them all together. So we begin with an overview of tools and methods for research. See figure 11-3, this here. Obviously, it won't make sense or be possible to use every tool and every object. And of course, you should absolutely seek out and try methods we haven't covered. Our goal is to provide you with a map and a compass, the journey that's left to you. The journey of the techno wizard. So here we have in the context section, we can use background research, presentations and meetings, stakeholder interviews, and technology assessment to get that context. For content, we can use heuristic evaluation, metadata and content analysis, content mapping, and benchmarking. And for users, we can do search log and clickstream analysis, use cases and personas, contextual inquiry, and user interviews and user testing. Of course, there's always more in the toolbox that we can get. But yeah, this is cool. It's cool to see that the overall context of where to use each of these tools. Debbie calls this the science and technique of design, right? Of understanding why to use, what objects and what processes and what tools in the process. You don't just throw up a persona just because you think you need one. You you create a persona for a reason, right? For doing a bunch of research and realizing, okay, we need to, synthesize all this data to make it easy to look at and easy to refer back to. And so therefore you might choose to do a persona or use cases or whatever. So yeah, this is pretty cool. Context. For practical purposes, an investigation of the business context can be a good place to start. It's critical to begin projects with a clear understanding of the goals and an appreciation of the political environment. Ignoring business realities is just as dangerous as ignoring users. A perfectly usable website or app that fails to support business goals won't last long. The term user-centered design is valuable insofar as it moves the pendulum away from executive-centered design, but don't let that pendulum swing too far. Interesting. The term user-centered design is invaluable insofar as it moves the pendulum away from executive-centered design. Yeah, but don't let it go too far, because unfortunately, of course, user-centered design is important and should be the critical thing. You also have to figure out the business use case, like how to show that the user-centered, approach is the business-centered approach. Like how to show that context, that bringing together of the business needs with the user needs, right? I think it's very easy to kind of be like the naive designer of, oh yeah, you're just looking for user. I might make this bigger just so I can make my hand gestures a little bit. Oh, it's still the same. It's just literally bigger. It doesn't really show more of the screen. Okay, never mind then. But anyways, it's easy to be the naive designers. Like, oh yeah, I'm looking for the user needs, but business people are like, okay, but how do we make money, right? How do we do this? How do we do that, right? So you really have to consider, you have to show them that, hey, doing what the user wants is a good business need, because that can be more profits because they'll buy this or they buy that, right? And you can show that how it's all related and why it's in their best interest to do what the user needs. So yeah, this is a good point right here. Of course, context isn't just about politics. We also need to understand goals, budgets, schedules, technology infrastructure, human resources, and corporate culture. Yep. Legal issues can also be important, particularly in heavily regulated industries. All of these factors can and should influence the shape of the information architecture strategy. So this reminds me of when I was working at the arcade, is the fact that a lot of customers want like some really cool games, like the newest games that are coming out for VR, such as, Half-Life Alyx, right? When that was coming out, a lot of people wanted Half-Life Alyx, but we had to tell them, like, that they didn't offer a commercial license at the time. So I was like, we'll love to give it to you, but they don't have a license, right? And even when they did come out with one, did they? They might have, but it was super expensive. So I'm just like, are you going to pay, for that amount? So we were thinking about how to introduce, things like that. But then the pandemic hit and it just got crazy. But there are a lot of these considerations where I was like, fielding what the user needs. Like people wanted Beat Saber, but they wanted custom songs in Beat Saber. But that goes against the licensing thing. So we can't have the custom songs in the game like Beat Saber in an arcade setting, right? So how can we show people, hey, if you want more interesting songs, maybe we can do tournaments, maybe we can do like beta testing or something like that, or maybe we can do, or maybe you can just bring your friends to come play Beat Saber, and then if you all enjoy it, you go get it at home, and you can get your own custom songs at home or something like that, right? So there's different ways in which we can think about the customer needs and customer kind of concerns and desires, along with the business needs and what we can, our limitations, as well as our, profitable, our needs for profit and stuff like that to make a sustaining business. So you have to take those into consideration. But ideally, it would be a kind of a balance rather than a compromise, or rather than I wouldn't say compromise, it's always a compromise, but rather than a exploitative nature, right? Like you don't want to only think about the user needs insofar as like, oh, how can we extract more from them? How can we take as much money from them as possible, right? It's more like, how can we elevate the user needs such that you can make a whole lot of money by giving people what they actually need and want, rather than just, extracting value and profit. Anyways, getting buy-in. Research is not a one-way street. While conducting your investigation, it's important to recognize that the value of building awareness and support for your project. After all, you're not a scientist studying rats. Yeah, your human subjects will have their own set of questions and concerns. For example, who are you and why are you asking me these questions? What's information architecture and why should I care? Yep. A lot of people still don't know what information architecture is. What's your methodology and how does it relate to my work? The way you answer these questions will influence the level of support you receive throughout the project, because most large information environments depend upon interdepartmental collaboration and decentralized content ownership. It's impossible to succeed without broad buy-in. For this reason, you want to weave elements of presentation and persuasion throughout the research process. That's beautiful, right? You want to make sure that people are understanding why what you're doing is important, right? I learned this a lot in the Ask Like a Pro class with Michelle Ronson, where she was talking about, in order to get stakeholder buy-in, you have to actually talk to the different stakeholders, right? Just get it could be as simple as a unofficial kind of interview, as just a casual talking to them to kind of get an understanding of where they're coming from, what things they care about, what are their constraints and concerns and things like that, all the way to a formal scheduled interview where you're trying to get a good understanding of all these different things, and you send them the questions beforehand so they can prepare. Then you ask them these things, or whatever they're comfortable with. So these different ways of getting buy-in is extremely important to show people the benefits, the value, and the need, right, for research, and how it relates to them specifically too. Because a lot of people love to think that research is just in its own silo and it's just whatever, right? But no, it's hand in hand with what everybody else is doing, and you have to show them how it is hand in hand. You have to show them how it is important to their specific needs, their specific KPIs, or whatever they're trying to get across. Anyways, background research. When a project begins, you should have all sorts of questions. What are the short and long-term goals? What's the business plan? What are the politics? What's the schedule and budget? Who are the intended audiences? Why will people come? Why will they come back? What type of tasks should users be able to perform? How will content be created and managed, and by whom? What's the technical infrastructure? What worked best in the past? What didn't? All of that, yeah, that's great questions. And again, Michelle mentioned how when you're doing research, you need to make sure that you have a solid idea, solid plan for how it's going to be used. You can't just do research just because, right? You have to make a plan for how will that research be used, right? If you're just doing research and you have no plan, you have no idea when or if it will be used, then it's just wasting your time. You're wasting your time, you're wasting your money, wasting your company's money, and therefore you're going to have less sway, right? People aren't going to want to work with you because you just seem like a drain on the resources. So what you have to do is ask all these questions and get a firm understanding of how it's going to be used, and show people how it's going to be used, or ask, how they want research to be used. Anyways, to continue, but just asking the right questions is not enough. You need to ask them of the right people in the right way, at the right time. You must be very focused on how you use people's time and realistic about who can answer which questions. Consequently, it's good to begin with the review of background materials. Sometimes the best way to learn about the future is to dig into the past. Oh my gosh, I love that so much, because that's exactly what I do in general for society. On a societal basis, I think this is a principle that we should be using overall, not just in your companies, but as society. Too much today, and we try to just imagine what the future could look like with no understanding of how we got here in the first place, right? No understanding of the current background of our current society, and how it is that our, capitalist structure, imperialist structure, democratic structure, whatever, was created, and therefore we don't really have a deep understanding of the problems associated. And so when you just say, oh, here are some solutions, here are some ideas for the future, but it has no grounding, right? No basis in the past and history and in the current day, it just seems like blue sky thinking. It just seems like unrealistic, naive type of thinking. But if you can ground that in historical evidence and understanding of the background, then people will understand that where you're coming from, and they can actually, relate to what you're trying to say, and understand that you're not just coming with stuff out the blue. You actually educate it. You actually understand the problem. So, yeah, definitely. Get your hands on any documents that relate to the site's mission, vision, goals, intended audiences, and content. Also, try to find documents that provide a broader picture of the management structure and culture. For example, organization charts are really valuable if you're an outside consultant, particularly when working on intranets. They capture an important component of the internal user's mental model of the organization and will help you determine stakeholders and user groups for interviews and testing. Beautiful stuff. Note, a revealing exercise is to compare the vision that preceded the current product with the actual product itself. In some cases, we've seen elaborate PowerPoint presentations, hundreds of pages long, that paint a tremendously ambitious picture of what the information environment should be, and then we looked to the actual product and found a small, poorly designed website with limited functionality. This gap between vision and reality is a red flag, suggesting misunderstanding between the managers who produce the slides and the team who must build the product. Great visions are useless without the time, money, and expertise to implement them. In these cases, you will need to rein in expectations quickly. So that's it. That's my 15 minutes. But that was great. That was great. I definitely need to remember to read this through outside of this, because I want to get through this book. I have so much more to read. But yeah, this is great. Absolutely amazing stuff, and beautiful things. So I want to get to a point where I'm practicing this stuff too, getting into that practice of it, and doing this stuff for my own websites, for my different projects that I have that I want to be involved in and want to do. So I'm gonna do my best to do that within the next few weeks. As always, though, thanks for watching, and hope you learned something with me today. Let me know in the comments if you did or if you didn't. And let me know what you think about this new format of using Loom instead of Zoom. Anyways, have a great day. See ya. Bye-bye.